talking and having prayer. And the Pope has his little cap on.
Yeah.
And the wind blew. And he could not reach his cap. And we could not reach it with the fishing pole. So I got up out the boat and I walked across the water and got the Pope's cap and brought it back to him. He said, thanks. And the headlines read the next day, Jesse can't swim.
That's what they put on there?
It wouldn't give me credit.
They covered the good part.
It wouldn't give you credit walking on water, but you can't swim. And so sometimes the press is preordained to conflict. But I must say, in this sense, a lot of good news stories have come out of this crisis. Here's given all this tension around Muslims in the U.S. around the country. Here's the country 90% Muslim. You don't have these kind of uprisings, violent uprisings in this country. And that level of Christian-Muslim relationship here, and interrelationship, and social relationship, and marriage relationship, this becomes a good example of what we have good relationships, and Muslims and Christians can coexist. And we hope that's what it will be around the world.
This trip that you decided to make to the Gambia, and are you working in this with the U.S. government, or are you doing it on a personal level?
Rainbow Push, we're doing it on a personal level. On the other hand, we made contact with the U.S. State Department, with our own embassy, because our embassy desired for the execution to stop. It couldn't very well demand it because we have executions at home. Many states have capital punishment laws. We protest against it, but they cannot very well tell Gambia not to do it when in states in America do it. On the other hand, our State Department wanted those Americans out if possible. But they had no right to demand that of the Gambia, but to appeal for it to happen.
Yeah.
And I must say, our ambassador here, Ambassador Africa, has done a good job trying to build bridges, build relationships. And so it was all of us working together. I mean, the President, Jammeh, his authority and decision, civil society, the elders, the various religious groups, the human rights groups around the world, all of us together work to do something, I think, wholesome and good.
Well, I think this is a good thing, because I always say dialogue is very important. You know, it's good to talk.
Dialogue, agree to agree, agree to disagree. And we are forever, a key to democracy is dialogue. When you have one-way communications, that's tyranny. We really must impress upon all these everywhere the idea that dialogue is what makes democracy work. We don't know how good democracy can be until everybody can participate. The key to democracy working is give exchange. You win some, you lose some, but you always participate. Participation may be the keyest element in democracy.
So the two Americans that are leaving with you, are they going with their families? Because I know one of them has his families here in the Gambia.
Why? They're going with our delegation.
Oh, they're all going.
They're all going back to New York now to meet the rest of their family. Both are leaving the prison in the Gambia. They're flying out, going to the States, and they'll meet their families in New York. It's a joyous reunion, a joyous celebration. And I hope that when they get to the other shore, they'll realize that they got out on the President extending his grace and his mercy to allow them, and that they will say, be as positive as they can be about new possibilities and new awakening here in the Gambia.
Okay. Now let's talk about your project. Is the Rainbow Push Coalition? What do you do? Is it all humanitarian work, traveling around?
Now we're really working diligently on getting President Barack Obama reelected. He's good for America. He's good for the world. The fact he's African American, given America's racial history, it is a redemptive election. It's a good thing when America can project people of color and women and people who are poor can rise. All that is good redemptive stuff. President Barack Obama is an extremely able man. He inherited a very difficult situation. We had lost because we did a huge tax cut and engaged in two wars at the same time. And our banks did not have oversight. And all the automotive industry collapsed all at the same time. The biggest industry collapsing, banks collapsing, more war. It was tough. Virtually a depression. He was able to, one, We lost 4 million jobs in 4 years. He stopped the hemorrhaging of those losses. We went from losing 4 million jobs to gaining 5 million. It's a 9 million job swing. The banks were bailed out with a stimulus of sorts, and they regained their footing. They must now be connected to investment and lending. The automotive industry is now #1 again. He's really turned the American economy around. It's not where it ought to be, but he inherited a hole that was so very, very deep. And he has done this amidst a lot of obstruction. The party in opposition said their mission was not to make the American economy work. It was not jobs, it was to feed him. And they've called him names. You're not an American, they've said. You're not a Christian, they've said. I mean, they've attacked. Yet he has maintained the capacity to rise above those attacks, that pain, those fears. America is moving now in many ways for the better, and he is beginning to get credit for it. And I have reason to believe that he'll win again.
You believe he will win again?
He'll win again, and I know he deserves.
I was going to ask you the prospects of his.
We are a better off nation because he came this way. Now look at the job arrow pointing upward, women's rights, gender equality pointing upward. It's called the Let Better Act back home. More health care coverage, the arrow is pointing up. 100,000 troops out of Iraq. Arrow is pointing up. So one sees these positive things occurring under his leadership, and so he must get credit for it. And his competition does not have any such track record.
I watched one interview with Mitt Romney, and he said Obama is a good person, but he's not a good president. Personally, how would you rate Obama?
Well, that's just trying to fill in space by saying something. He's a good person. That's a good thing. He's also a leader. Yeah. On him, the 100,000 troops out of Iraq, we fought the war in Iraq, the wrong war, the wrong target. We lost $1 to $3 trillion chasing Al-Qaeda. They were not in Iraq. Iraq never hit us. We hit that country, destroyed the country and its leadership. We were too arrogant even to apologize for that. But the $1 to $3 trillion hurt us badly. What could $1 trillion do today? Wipe out every state budget deficit. Rehire police and teachers and firemen and reopen libraries. It could do so much for America today. So that war was a disaster for us. And the fact that we cut taxes, we lost the ability to pay for the war. So it ran us into a deep debt, a deep hole. At the same time, the banks, without oversight, ran amok with wild investments. And the automotive industry collapsing. All this stuff came down at the same time. President Barack has methodically brought all the industry back to #1 again. The healthcare system, in fact, has expanded more coverage. There's less troops in Iraq today. And so, frankly, I feel good about his leadership.
You feel good about his leadership, and you believe that he'll be re-elected?
Well, the polls show America swinging toward his
stability. The margin that I saw in the polls is always very, very narrow between him and Mitt Romney.
So much the Republicans are trying to win not by inclusion but by exclusion. They're trying to win by purging voters from the rolls by the thousands, trying to use voter suppression schemes. But we're challenging those schemes. People are going to vote with a passion and in great numbers, and they ought to.
Well, now that you've concluded your visit to the Gambia, you're about to go back now, and I'm sure you have a story to tell about the Gambia. What would this be?
Well, the first story is I'm coming back.
That's a good thing.
And the second story is the Roots Festival is next year. And I expect to be at the Roots Festival. And to bring others to the Roots Festival. And I hope that the idea of maintaining the moratorium on executions will hold. That some others who are in prison will be set free. But I hope that the growth continues, the economic growth, the healthcare growth, the dialogue will continue, free press will be extended and expanded, because A key to a democracy is free and fair press.